Zuko was sitting alone in his room aboard his ship. He was trying to meditate, but he kept shifting anxiously and glancing at the door every few minutes. Uncle had forced him to take the day off, but Zuko was not good just sitting around on the best of days. Now that he knew the Avatar was getting away every minute they wasted on his health, Zuko was truly on edge. Sergeant Cho had estimated the prince had 3 broken ribs and a mild concussion, and Uncle insisted they took his injuries seriously and went to see a healer before going after the Avatar. Since Zuko had no idea which way the Avatar had gone, he had no choice but to comply. It would be a few more hours before they docked at a Fire Nation outpost, though, and waiting was driving him nuts. The one good thing about the situation was that Uncle had told the crew not to bother his nephew, which meant that now was a good time to cold practice his mind bending. And practice it needed. Zuko was by no means a master when it came to using the power of dragons, but he couldn't afford to keep making rookie mistakes like back in the Water Tribe village. The things Zuko had found out about Katara's past had made him lower his mental defenses for a crucial moment. He may have accidentally allowed Katara to see into his own past, and although he wasn't sure how much of himself he had revealed, Zuko had an unnerving feeling it would come back to haunt him one day. Uncle was the only person aboard who knew of Zuko's unusual talent. The Order hadn't wanted Zuko to tell anyone, but the prince couldn't keep many things from his uncle. Iroh hadn't been wildly enthusiastic about Zuko's plan to learn an ancient, forbidden form of firebending from a mysterious order, but he hadn't forbidden it. There are very few things Iroh ever forbids Zuko from doing. Due to the secrecy, finding a sparring partner aboard the ship wasn't going to happen. Uncle had no affinity for the power, and Zuko and Iroh had long ago made a silent agreement that Zuko would never use the power of dragons on Uncle. If Iroh wanted to tell his nephew something, he would do so. If not, Zuko didn't need to know. Everyone is entitled to their secrets. Well, almost everyone. On some level, Zuko knew that the way he treated Uncle shouldn't have been the exception, but the rule. Intruding into someone else's memories without their permission was wrong. However, sometimes the ends justified the means. Even so, Zuko didn't use the power often, and when he did, he tried to turn it into a deal. It wasn't fair even then, but at least the prince had a way to give his target the heads up that he or she was about to be interrogated. Luckily, in most cases, verbal threats were enough to loosen people's tongues. Sometimes, though, people were willing to take their secrets with them to the grave, and Zuko couldn't have that. On a few occasions, like with Katara, people knew more than they realized they did. Due to his circumstances, Zuko had long ago memorized various ways of practicing his unusual form of bending without a subject to practice on. It wasn't ideal, but a mental practice run was still better than nothing, he supposed. Concentration, breathing, and determination were key elements in all firebending, and the power of dragons was no exception. Only the most focused of minds could extend their chi to other people's. Zuko started his session by going over a breathing technique that was supposed to clear one's mind and improve control over one's flow of chi. 2 years ago. You're still not doing it right. Again. Of course, Zuko wasn't doing it right. He could count on all the times he'd done something right in his life with his fingers and have a few to spare. Father had said Azula was born lucky, and that Zuko was lucky to be born. It was perhaps true, but it wouldn't stop him from trying. Again and again, and as many times as it took. Sifu Kata was eyeing Zuko with displeasure, not an unusual expression on the old man's face. Zuko hadn't seen Kurta look content even once in the past couple weeks he's been coming to the monastery. Maybe it's not me. Maybe happy just isn't his cup of tea. Zuko took a deep breath and attempted to focus his thoughts even more than he had done on the past 26 times he had tried to access Master Kurta's memories. They say the first time is always the hardest. The elders of the Order of Shadow claimed dragons had invented this unusual form of firebending to communicate with one another on a deeper level than just roars and hisses. The legend spoke of mighty dragons who could look into a man's heart and see their intentions without even touching them, but Zuko was pretty sure that part was superstition. The Order taught that although the power could be used to either look into a person's memories or for showing their own, a human firebender should only use it to gain information, not to share it. Why so, Zuko wasn't sure, but not sharing information seemed to be the unofficial motto of the Order anyway. Sometimes Zuko thought they were being secretive just to annoy him, but on the other hand, they had their reasons. If anyone in the Fire Nation knew about the Order was teaching on the remote mountain slope in the Earth Kingdom, they would probably be wiped out faster than the air nomads. Power of Dragons was a bit like healing for waterbenders, an inside the body form of healing that not every bender could learn. However, those with affinity for the power were few and far between. Most of them had no training. Also, while waterbenders took pride in their healing arts, most firebenders didn't even know about reading memories was possible. Even among those who knew of the existence, the ability was a controversial topic. On one hand, an ability that proved fire was the superior element was something the Fire Nation should hold in high regard. However, an older wisdom stated that knowledge was the ultimate form of power, and no one should have more power than the Fire Lord. Almost 1,000 years ago, after Fire Lord Arizon, a distant ancestor of Zuko's, had shown no affinity for the power of dragons. Teaching it had been declared illegal and punishable by death. Gradually, the art had all but vanished. The Order of Shadows had been created to keep what they felt was the highest form of firebending from disappearing completely, so they had a reason to keep to themselves, and they had done exactly that for hundreds of years. If you feel this exercise is beneath your royal notice, I could easily think of more challenging ones, Kurta's voice said inside of Zuko's mind, startling him out of his thoughts. It still surprised Zuko how effortlessly the old masters could use their ability. All Zuko could do after 2 weeks of training was look into a person's past, a random selected memory, or accidentally show them something from his. Thoughts weren't words, they were more like feelings and images, but the master could show him such precise images that it was kind of like having a conversation. You just skipped the part of forming words. I'm never going to get used to that, Zuko grimaced and tried to focus on the present. You're still not trying. I am trying! Zuko yelled. No, you're not, Kurta said, pulling back and broke the connection. You are letting your emotions influence your performance. Having potential is meaningless if you don't work at it. If you cannot let go of your inner turmoil for the length of a short assignment, we are going nowhere. Literally, since I'm not going to tell you where the key is to that door. You do want to know what you're looking for, don't you? The Avatar. Zuko bit his lip and tried one more time to find out from Kurta's mind where the master had hid the key to the door they were both locked in. Present day. Well, 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 what do we have here? If it isn't General Iroh and Prince Zuko. It's a pity you didn't inform me ahead that you were planning to visit my port. Not that I would have made any arrangements. As a commander, I have more important things to do. But as always, a pleasure to have high-ranking guests, and all the information. Commander Zhao had barely walked into Zuko's bunk in the healing facility. He had already insulted Zuko and Iroh in 7 different ways. The man certainly didn't waste no time, Iroh thought with contempt. Zhao was obviously enjoying seeing his nephew in such a sorry state, that more than anything made Iroh extremely unforgiving. On the outside, though, the Dragon of the West had a calm smile plastered on his face. Uncle greeted Commander Zhao with all due respect. Zuko said nothing, which may have been bad manners, but under the circumstances, it was far from the worst his nephew could have done. At least Zuko is controlling himself for now. The last thing we need to do is give Zhao more material to work with. I was sorry to hear of your injury. I hope your recovery won't keep you here too long. Say again, how exactly did you manage to get yourself so beat up? Good question. Iroh hadn't expected an interrogation so soon, and was now hard-pressed to think of a plausible excuse. His nephew had made it clear that under no circumstances were they to mention the word Avatar to anyone. We were in a battle, Iroh managed eventually. A battle? How interesting. Against whom? The commander's eyes narrowed. It was a training fight, Zuko answered, his tone solemn but not entirely unconvincing. Zhao looked at the young man, obviously trying to determine whether he was being lied to, but Zuko's face was a serious mask. The commander appeared to decide to go with their story for the time being. Naturally, Zhao said, lifting his eyebrows cautiously. Then you should be grateful that you got away with a few bruises. Taking your skill level in consideration, it could have been much worse. Zuko's mask broke. If you think me so weak, then why not see for yourself? Is that a challenge? Zhao asked with silky voice and a venomous smile. Iroh was sure there was no stopping them from escalating now, but to his surprise, Zuko leaned back, crossed his arms, and looked to the side and huffed. No, just wondering out loud. I see. Well, we'd better leave it at that, since we would hate for your condition to become more severe. Zhao said in a tone that made it clear he wasn't going to drop the subject. This could turn out to be a painfully long afternoon. Tea? Iroh said with sudden enthusiasm. Zhao and Zuko both looked at him with shared disbelief. Commander Zhao, there's an old saying that goes, even a short journey is an arduous one if you make it such. I have always interpreted that it means everything can be improved with tea. So would you be kind and have some calming chamomile tea brought to us to ease my nephew's recovery? Well, the afternoon doesn't have to be entirely unpleasant. 2 years ago. Endurance, persistence, perseverance. These are the core ideals you need to take to heart. Shifu Mizra glanced at Zuko as she spoke, her brown eyes so dark they were almost black. Her hair was worn in a long phoenix tail that flowed when she moved. She was beautiful, but underestimating her proved to be the last stupid thing Zuko would have time to do. Luckily, having been raised with Azula, Zuko learned long ago every meaning of the phrase, looks can be deceiving. Mizra wasn't a firebender, but a rumor around the monastery had it she could do more damage with a broadsword than some benders with all their might. Zuko had been surprised to find out that most of the Order members didn't have any bending, and even out of the benders, only a fraction could practice the power of dragons. Apparently, preserving and appreciating the art didn't require having it. Zuko had also been mistaken to presume that all the inhabitants were old gray men. Almost half the members were women, and there were young apprentices around as well, although none of them as young as Zuko. Most of the current members were from the colonies, but some hailed from the main islands. For varying reasons, these people no longer had prospects in the Fire Nation. Kurta claimed that some members hailed from long lines of Order members, dating back to the time the group had been founded almost 1,000 years ago. Zuko studied mostly under his assigned master, but also given lessons by the other teachers. The Order taught a wide variety of skills: sneaking, hiding, infiltration, spying, and fighting. They were a spy organization in every meaning of the word. No wonder I got busted so fast when I first tried to enter this place. The Order is probably keeping tabs on the nearby port. They must have been preparing for my coming here even before I knew I would. Zuko had been keeping up a horse stance for more than half an hour. His legs were starting to cramp, but he tried to keep the pain from showing. Shifu Mizra had been keeping the same stance at the same time. She wasn't even sweating. Mizra had said Zuko could ask for a break if he needed one, but the boy wasn't planning on losing the test, whatever his purpose may be. Always gather as much information as you can from the situation, your surroundings, and your target. Prefer tactics that are unusual so your target won't see you coming. Use the rooftops, not the streets. Hide yourself with your clothing, either by matching the environment or the crowd. That means dark clothes during the night, white in snow, peasant clothes to enable hiding in plain sight. Mizra advised Zuko in an even tone. It seems she had memorized the rules of engagement. Avoid fights if you can, especially if you are outnumbered. If you are spotted before you're ready to make your move, retreat and try again. If you are forced into a situation that you cannot get out of without fighting, you have already failed. Zuko frowned. This advice sounded odd. Isn't fighting supposed to be to show one's might, and running from a fight to show one's weakness? Then again, Father had always complimented Azula on both. Her ability to win her opponents with her superior skills, and her ability to best them with her cunning. Perhaps both were needed. Even well-made plans tend to last only until you engage the enemy, so anything can happen, and you should prepare for surprises the best you can. Always have more than one weapon on you: bending, swords, throwing knives. Rope is good for both climbing and tying your target. Without warning, Mizra broke out of her stance and grabbed a handful of shuriken from her sleeve. Zuko reacted automatically at her sudden movement and tried to reach for his dao on his back, only to be reminded he had left them by the far wall of the room. Okay, time to get creative. Not wanting to be a sitting duck, Zuko began running toward Mizra. She can't throw them at me if she doesn't have space to throw. He dodged the first shuriken by taking a dive. The next he deflected with his armored right hand. When Zuko reached Mira, he grabbed at her throwing hand. Mizra jumped and somersaulted through the air, forcing Zuko to let go of her. Landing, she charged at Zuko with the shuriken still in hand. Zuko guided her attack to his side and tried to lock Mizra's other arm behind her back. He intended to take her down with his body weight, but she was faster. Mizra kicked Zuko in the knee. Shocked by the sudden pain, Zuko lost his grip. Mizra whirled around and punched Zuko in his solar plex. Zuko fell to the ground, unable to breathe. "Not bad, little dragon," Mizra said cheerfully. "We'll make a ninja out of you yet." Present day. Commander Zhao was surprised. He had heard the prince had temper and had expected getting Zuko to slip something about where he had really gotten his injuries from to be a, walk in the park. Now Zhao had spent considerably more time with Prince Zuko and General Iroh than he ever intended to, and he still didn't have all the answers. Even rubbing in their faces just how spectacular the Fire Nation's world conquest was going along, no thanks to them, and watching Zuko's knuckles turn from pale to stark white was starting to lose its entertainment value. The most frustrating part was whatever had happened, it was most likely nothing particularly important or interesting. Iroh, once a great general, but was these days more interested in brewing tea than achieving anything with his life. Zuko was interested in little else than his quest to find the Avatar, and since the Avatar was dead, there was a good chance Zhao was wasting his time. Still, Zhao disliked it when people tried to keep things from him. He couldn't quite shake the feeling that there was more going on than meet the eye. "Commander!" A soldier entered the room and bowed respectfully. Zhao nodded, signaling the man to continue. "We interrogated the prince's crew as you ordered, sir. According to them, Prince Zuko received his injuries while combating the Avatar, who he had in custody but allowed to escape." A smile formed on the commander's lips. The news made all the tea drinking more than worth it. Zhao turned to look at Zuko, unable to resist asking, "Say, how did you get your injuries again?" The look on the prince's face was so angry that for a moment Zhao thought the meeting would end in Agni Kai after all. The boy seemed to have completely forgotten his injuries and would have probably jumped out of bed if it hadn't been for Iroh practically sitting on him, reminding the boy to be mindful of his health. Zhao left the healing facility and told his men to make sure the prince would not leave the harbor before he himself was well on his way. The information wasn't just juicy, it was an unprecedented opportunity. If Zhao captured the Avatar, he would become one of the most influential men in all of the Fire Nation. And the only thing standing in his way was a 16-year-old spoiled brat who probably had no loyalty left for his nation. What else had Zhao expected, really? He had heard the boy took after his mother. Although he had met Lady Ursa only once, the resemblance was staggering. No wonder the Fire Lord banished them both.